The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the sprawling oasis that seemed to breathe with life amid the harsh desert. Dr. Jonathan Crane, Lila Hassan, and Dr. Marcus Finch stepped cautiously beneath the canopy of towering palm trees, their boots sinking softly into the warm, fine sand. The air was thick with the fragrant scent of blooming desert flowers, mingling with the subtle, refreshing aroma of fresh water. Somewhere nearby, the gentle murmur of a spring whispered through the oasis, a stark contrast to the relentless silence of the dunes beyond. Jonathan's sharp eyes scanned the surroundings, taking in the ancient stone pillars that rose like sentinels around the perimeter. Each pillar was carved with intricate symbols, worn by the passage of countless years, but still unmistakably purposeful. The group moved silently, reverence settling over them like a shroud. This was no ordinary oasis, this was a sacred place, one protected by mysteries older than human memory. "Look at these inscriptions," Marcus murmured, kneeling beside a crumbled pedestal. His fingers traced the faded etchings, careful not to disturb the fragile relic. Their warnings, threats, almost. Lila crouched nearby, her intense eyes flicking toward the shadows between the trees. "This place isn't just hidden by the desert, it's guarded." Jonathan nodded, heart pounding with a mixture of awe and caution. "We need to tread carefully." The legends spoke of guardians, ancient protectors who punish the unworthy. As they ventured deeper, the ground beneath Lila's boots suddenly shifted. A faint, metallic click echoed through the still air. "Wait," Jonathan hissed, grabbing her arm just before she could step forward. But the mechanism had already been triggered. A massive stone wall to their left groaned and began to slide open, revealing a narrow passage shrouded in darkness. From the shadows emerged a series of deadly traps, swinging blades poised to slice, concealed pits yawning like hungry maws. The team froze, their breaths caught in their throats. Jonathan's fingers brushed the edge of a stone tablet nearby, its surface inscribed with fresh warnings in an ancient tongue. "The oasis protects itself," Marcus whispered, eyes wide as he deciphered the text. "Any who seek to exploit its power without respect will face dire consequences." Lila's voice was steady despite the tension. "We knew this wouldn't be easy, but we have to move forward." Jonathan's mind raced, weighing each step with care. Every trap was a test, a measure of their worthiness and resolve. The group moved with meticulous precision, Lila leading the way as she navigated the perilous passage. Jonathan's pulse quickened each time a blade swooshed past or a floor tile shifted ominously beneath their weight. Marcus followed closely, decoding more inscriptions that revealed the history of the oasis and the sacred duty of its guardians. Hours seemed to stretch into eternity as they pressed onward. The oppressive heat of the desert faded beneath the oasis's sheltering foliage, replaced by a coolness that hinted at the hidden spring's life-giving power. Finally, they emerged into a glade where the water shimmered like liquid glass. The oasis lay before them in all its ethereal beauty, a verdant paradise cradled by ancient stonework and vibrant flora. But the serenity was deceptive. The inscriptions had made clear that this sanctuary was not merely a haven, but a crucible. Jonathan knelt by the water's edge, his reflection wavering with the ripples. Around him, the team stood silent, each lost in their thoughts. The oasis was real, its power undeniable, yet it demanded respect, sacrifice, and an acceptance of burdens heavier than any of them had anticipated. "This is more than a discovery," Jonathan said quietly. "It's a responsibility." Lila's gaze met his, fierce and unwavering. "Then we protect it, no matter the cost." Marcus adjusted his glasses, a newfound reverence softening his skepticism. Perhaps some legends are rooted in truth after all. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows beneath the palms, the team prepared for the challenges yet to come. The ancient guardians had made their presence known. Now it was up to Jonathan and his companions to prove their worth, or be consumed by the desert's timeless wrath. The oasis whispered its secrets beneath the desert moon, waiting for the next move in an endless game of pursuit and survival. The chamber was hushed, save for the soft scrape of Marcus Finch's fingers tracing the worn carvings on the ancient tablet. The flickering lantern light cast long shadows across the stone walls, dancing like restless spirits in the twilight gloom. Jonathan Crane stood close by, his eyes narrowed, absorbing every detail with the intensity of a man desperate for answers. Lila Hassan, ever vigilant, scanned the temple's dark corners, her senses tuned to the desert's ever-present whisper. "These symbols," Marcus murmured, his voice thick with concentration, "they're unlike anything I've encountered before. The script is archaic, predating known civilizations in this region. But the pattern, it's a complex spell, an enchantment of sorts." Jonathan's pulse quickened. "A spell? You mean the oasis isn't just a natural phenomenon?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Exactly. This isn't merely a hidden spring or a mirage conjured by heat. The oasis is cloaked by an ancient illusion, one designed to protect it from those who might exploit its power." Leela stepped forward, her eyes sharp. "So that's why it vanishes at sunset. The spell activates with the setting sun, hiding the oasis until dawn." "Yes," Marcus confirmed. "The inscriptions suggest it's a protective mechanism, a safeguard woven by the original architects of this place. They understood the danger the oasis could pose if discovered by the wrong hands." Jonathan paced, the weight of the revelation settling over him like a heavy shroud. "That means our time to reach it each day is limited. We have to synchronize our movements perfectly, or we risk losing the oasis again. And Moloch's forces will be trying the same," Leela added grimly. "We can't afford any mistakes." The air in the chamber grew cooler as the sun's light began to fade outside. The team gathered their equipment, the urgency now palpable. Emerging from the temple, they were greeted by the sight of the oasis shimmering in the distance, an emerald jewel nestled among golden dunes. The desert wind carried the faint scent of blooming flowers and fresh water, a stark contrast to the arid wasteland surrounding them. "There it is," Jonathan breathed, his voice a mixture of awe and determination. "But it won't last." Leela's gaze locked on the horizon where the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows and bathing the landscape in a warm orange glow. "We have less than an hour before it disappears again. We move fast, no pauses." Marcus, still clutching his notes, added, "The spell's energy wanes with daylight. Once the sun sets, the illusion conceals the oasis completely. Any attempt to stay beyond that point risks being trapped outside, lost in the desert's expanse until dawn." Jonathan nodded, the enormity of their challenge crystallizing. "We'll need to split tasks, some securing a perimeter, others scouting for traps." The temple's warnings weren't just superstition. Leela turned to him, eyes fierce. "We're ready. The desert has tested us, and we've survived. This is what we came for." As the sun slipped closer to the horizon, the team quickened their steps, the oasis's shimmering allure spurring them forward. The desert seemed to hold its breath, the silence punctuated only by the crunch of sand beneath their boots and the distant call of a desert hawk. Jonathan's mind raced with possibilities and strategies. Could they outmaneuver Malik and his mercenaries? Could they unravel the full extent of the oasis's secrets before the spell reclaimed its hold? The answers lay ahead, just beyond the shimmering veil of the desert's greatest mystery. Night was approaching, and with it, the illusion's power would rise again. But for now, beneath the dying light of day, hope burned as fiercely as the desert sun. The sun hung low in the sky, its fierce orange glow stretching long shadows across the rolling dunes as Dr. Jonathan Crane led his weary team onward. Every step sank into the hot, shifting sand, a cruel reminder of the harshness of the desert they had sworn to conquer. Sweat stung Jonathan's eyes, mixing with dust and grit, but he refused to yield to exhaustion. The lost oasis, their prize, their hope lay just beyond the horizon, shimmering like a promise in the heat waves that danced before them. "Keep moving," Jonathan urged, his voice hoarse but resolute. "We're closer than ever. Don't let the desert beat us now." Beside him, Leila Hassan scanned the horizon with practiced eyes, her sun-kissed skin gleaming with sweat, muscles taut beneath her travel-worn gear. "Storms brewing," she warned, nodding toward the distant sky where dark clouds churned like malevolent spirits. "We've got maybe an hour before it hits." Marcus Finch adjusted his dusty spectacles, brow furrowed. "I don't like the look of those clouds. If that storm catches us out here, we could lose everything." Jonathan's jaw clenched. Time was a cruel adversary. The oasis was said to vanish at sunset, a shimmering mirage made real only while the sun graced the sky. If they didn't arrive soon, the desert would swallow their chance whole. The heat waves played tricks on their eyes. Jonathan stumbled, his vision momentarily blurred by a mirage, a glittering pool of water that rippled tantalizingly close. He reached out, fingers brushing the illusion, but it dissolved instantly into empty air and burning sand. Frustration surged through him, a bitter reminder of all the times the desert had toyed with his senses. "Don't fall for it," Leila cautioned, steadying his arm. "The desert's cruel like that. It wants to break you before you get to the truth." Jonathan nodded, swallowing the bitter taste of failure mingled with determination. They pressed onward, each step heavier, lungs burning in the dry air. The wind began to howl, carrying with it stinging particles of sand that whipped against their faces and forced their eyes shut. "Sandstorm," Leila called out, urgency sharpening her voice. "We need to find shelter now." The team scrambled, searching desperately for any sign of refuge amid the dunes. Jonathan's heart pounded, not just from exertion, but from the knowledge that the oasis might be just beyond their reach, and yet the desert seemed determined to keep its secrets. With seconds to spare, they crouched behind a jagged outcrop of sandstone, the sandstorm roaring round them like a living beast. Sand filled their mouths, clogged their throats, and blinded them. But the team huddled together, drawing strength from each other's presence. As twilight deepened, the storm abated, leaving a stillness that was almost sacred. The fading light cast a purple hue across the sands, and in the distance, Jonathan glimpsed a faint shimmer of promise that the oasis still existed, waiting for those brave enough to find it. "We made it this far," Jonathan whispered, voice raw but filled with fierce hope. "Tomorrow we finish this." But even as he spoke, the desert moon began its slow ascent, casting an ethereal glow over the landscape and reminding them that the race was far from over. The oasis's magic was fleeting, and the chase relentless. Beneath that pale light, the boundary between myth and reality blurred, and Jonathan knew that every step from here on would demand more than endurance, it would demand sacrifice. The desert night was alive with an eerie stillness, broken only by the distant whisper of wind weaving through the palm fronds surrounding the oasis. The moon hung low, a pale sentinel casting a silver glow over the shimmering water and the ancient stone ruins that dotted the landscape. Shadows danced like phantoms, and in the silence, every breath seemed amplified, every heartbeat a drum signaling the impending storm. Malik al-Sayed's mercenaries moved like ghosts, their dark silhouettes slipping between dunes and palms as they closed in on the oasis. Their eyes, sharp and calculating, reflected the moonlight with a cold hunger, their weapons glinting ominously. Malik himself stood at the center of the encircling force, his scarred face set in a cruel smirk, the lines of years etched deeply into his hardened features. Tonight was the night he would finally seize the power whispered about in legends. Inside the oasis's protective ring, Jonathan Crane crouched behind the broken remnants of a sandstone column, his breath shallow but steady. Beside him, Leela Hassan scanned the perimeter, her intense eyes cutting through the darkness. "They're close," she murmured, voice taut but controlled. "Too close." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "We knew this was coming. We have to hold them off until dawn." Dr. Marcus Finch adjusted his glasses nervously, clutching a small satchel of ancient artifacts they had uncovered earlier. If they get their hands on the relics, the consequences could be catastrophic. A sudden crack shattered the silence as a gunshot echoed through the night. The mercenaries had begun their assault. Chaos erupted. The tranquil oasis transformed into a battlefield. Bullets tore through the air, kicking up sand and splinters. Jonathan sprang forward, signaling to his team to take strategic positions among the ruins. Lila moved like a shadow, her voice sharp with commands as she directed the defense. "Stay low, return fire, protect the artifacts at all costs." Jonathan's orders were clear and resolute. Omar, Malik's ruthless enforcer, led a squad through the underbrush, their footsteps silent but deadly. They aimed to flank Jonathan's team and capture the relics. A firefight broke out nearby, the staccato rhythm of gunfire blending with shouted orders and the metallic clang of weapons. Jonathan ducked behind a large boulder, heart pounding. He caught sight of Malik advancing steadily, eyes locked on the oasis's heart. The two men's gazes met briefly, an unspoken challenge crackling between them. Malik's voice cut through the din, cold and mocking. "Jonathan, this obsession of yours ends tonight. The oasis belongs to whoever is strong enough to claim it." Jonathan's reply was a grim smile. "Strength without honor is nothing. You'll see that soon enough." The battle grew fiercer. Leela expertly maneuvered through the crossfire, her sharp wit cutting through the tension as she covered Marcus, who scrambled to secure the artifacts. Sweat and dust coated their skin, the desert's harshness magnified by the adrenaline surging through their veins. In a sudden surge, Malik broke through the defenses, confronting Jonathan directly beneath the ghostly glow of the desert moon. The air between them crackled with years of rivalry, pain, and unspoken grudges. They clashed fists, pounding, weapons discarded in favor of raw, desperate combat. The sand beneath their feet shifted as they grappled, their breaths ragged and voices hoarse. Each blow was fueled by more than anger. It was a battle for legacy, for survival, for something far greater than themselves. Around them, the oasis shimmered, its waters reflecting the turmoil. The ancient trees stood witness, their whispering leaves bearing silent testimony to the struggle unfolding beneath the night sky. The fight pushed Jonathan to his limits, testing every ounce of his endurance and resolve. Malik's strength was formidable, but Jonathan's determination was unyielding. As dawn approached, the first pale light bled into the horizon, casting long shadows and illuminating the battered figures locked in combat. Realizing the tide was turning, Malik snarled a retreat, signaling his mercenaries to fall back. The mercenaries melted into the desert's embrace, their defeat bitter but temporary. Jonathan collapsed to his knees, chest heaving, pain radiating through his body. Leela and Marcus rushed to his side, their expressions a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "We held them off," Leela said softly, her eyes scanning the desert that had tested them so harshly. Jonathan nodded, his gaze lingering on the oasis's fading shimmer. "For now, but the battle for this place is far from over." As the sun's first rays touched the horizon, the oasis began its slow, ethereal fade, the ancient illusion spell weaving its magic once more. The desert reclaimed its secret, leaving behind only footprints in the sand and the echo of a fierce confrontation beneath the desert moon. Jonathan's thoughts raced not with triumph, but with the weight of sacrifice and the uncertain path ahead. The final assault had tested everything he stood for, and yet the true challenge was only just beginning. Underneath the desert moon, the endless chase continued. The desert twilight was fading fast, the sky a canvas streaked with bruised purples and fiery reds as the sun dipped toward the horizon. Dr. Jonathan Crane stood at the edge of the legendary oasis, its waters shimmering with an otherworldly glow beneath the gathering desert moon. The air was cool now, but the tension that gripped him burned hotter than the day's searing heat. Behind him, the faint sound of footsteps on sand told him Malik al-Sayed and his band of mercenaries were closing in. Jonathan's gaze fixed on the oasis, its ethereal beauty both a beacon of hope and a harbinger of the impossible choice he faced. Countless days of hardship, of sandstorms and mirages, of ancient temples and whispered secrets had led to this moment. He could almost hear the ghostly voices of lost comrades carried on the desert wind, their sacrifices urging him forward. "Jonathan," Leela's voice cut through the stillness, sharp and steady. She emerged from behind a cluster of palm trees, her intense eyes reflecting the oasis's glow. "We don't have much time. Malik's men are closing in fast." Jonathan nodded, his mind racing. Beside Lila, Marcus Finch adjusted his glasses, his usually skeptical demeanor softened by the gravity of the moment. "The inscriptions. They speak of a guardian, a price to pay for immortality," Marcus murmured, gesturing toward the ancient tablet Jonathan had uncovered earlier beneath the oasis. "It's not a gift without cost." Jonathan's thoughts drifted back to the temple chamber where he had deciphered the cryptic warnings etched in glowing script. The ancient guardians, bound by an eternal watch, demanded a sacrifice that transcended mortal understanding. To claim immortality was to forever bind oneself to the desert's endless vigil, a fate more haunting than death itself. A sudden movement shattered his reverie. Malik appeared at the oasis's edge, flanked by his mercenaries, his scarred face twisted with greed and determination. "You've come far, Crane," Malik sneered, "but this power belongs to me. Hand over the relic, and maybe I'll spare your life." Jonathan's heart pounded fiercely as he stepped forward, his voice steady but resolute. "The oasis is not a prize for the greedy. Its secrets are meant to be protected, not exploited." Malik's eyes narrowed, and with a sudden roar he charged. The desert air erupted with the clash of wills as Jonathan and Malik grappled fiercely, sand swirling around them like a living storm. Lila and Marcus moved quickly, fending off the mercenaries and buying Jonathan precious seconds. The fight was brutal and unforgiving. Every strike carried the weight of desperation. Malik's strength was formidable, but Jonathan's endurance and strategic mind kept him a step ahead. Finally, with a decisive maneuver, Jonathan disarmed Malik, sending the ancient relic tumbling into the sand. Breathing heavily, Jonathan stared down his defeated rival. This ends now. With a profound sense of duty, Jonathan approached the ancient mechanism that controlled the oasis's secret. The inscriptions warned that activating it would forever conceal the oasis's power, destroying the chance for immortality but preserving the world from its corrupting influence. As his fingers brushed the worn stone, memories flooded him, his lost friend, the failures that had haunted him, the hope that had driven him onward. He knew what he must do. A low rumble echoed as the mechanism activated. The oasis's water shimmered and pulsed with light one last time before rippling outward and vanishing beneath the desert sands. The desert returned to silence, the secret once again hidden beneath an endless sea of dunes. Jonathan turned away from the empty basin, a mixture of melancholy and resolute acceptance settling over him. The chase was over, but the journey had changed him forever. "We did the right thing," Lila said softly, joining him. "Some treasures aren't meant to be claimed." Marcus nodded, eyes reflecting the fading moonlight. "Legacy isn't immortality. It's the mark we leave on the world." Jonathan looked up to the vast desert sky, the stars beginning to pierce the twilight veil. Underneath the desert moon, myth and reality blurred, and the true prize, the understanding of sacrifice and legacy, was finally within his grasp. Yet, even as the desert swallowed the secret, Jonathan knew the endless chase continued. The desert was eternal, its mysteries waiting to be uncovered by those willing to brave its unforgiving embrace. And as he prepared to lead his team away from the vanished oasis, one question lingered in his mind. Sharper than any blade, what other secrets did the desert hold beneath its shifting sands? The night air carried a whisper, a promise of new adventures beneath the desert moon. Jonathan Crane's story was far from over.